All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, this is Lizzie Kose with the Department of Education. I'm excited to present to you today our final Get Ready webinar. We have been through a lot together, and I'm so appreciative of all the hard work that's taken place and all of the hours you've dedicated to this, not only sitting in the webinars, but also all the work that it's taken outside of webinar time for you to do what you needed to do. So let's go ahead and get started for our final webinar for Get Ready. So we are going to, of course, have a few reminders, go over questions and feedback from our previous webinar, got a few final notes regarding the blueprint, and we'll go over what we've learned and what's next. So our Get Ready funding is available until June 30th, 2020, which is very exciting. We know that many of you might need to make amendments because of this additional time you've gotten added. So if that is the case, please complete your budget as soon as you can, but reach out to me if you have any questions. In fact, someone in their feedback from last week's webinar asked about EGMS budgets. They were still having trouble getting in there, so we're going to address that in just a moment because I know a lot of you have some issues with EGMS, just like I do. It is a fickle site to be on sometimes. So let's talk about that in just a moment. All right, so if you would like to get feedback from me and my team, please submit a blueprint draft to me by the end of the day on Friday, January 24th. That is this Friday. Super App, as you know, is due on February 7th. So this is a full 2 weeks before it's due. And some coworkers and I have time set aside on Friday and at the beginning of next week to really dig into all of your blueprints and to give you feedback in a timely manner so that if there's any adjustments you want to make before Super App, you can do so. Don't forget that those blueprint components include an analysis of your current state, mission and vision statements, and 3 to 5 goals complete with strategies, resources, and performance metrics. And when we talk about resources here, most people have listed existing resources already in place and additional resources needed in order to complete that goal. So, per the coordinated funding request guidance, blueprints are going to need to be posted to your website and linked in the Super App. And we'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. We'll do a blueprint review. This is our final webinar, so I know a lot of you are really excited to get your Wednesdays from 12 to 1 back. Thank you again for all of your hard work and dedication and showing up every week. We so appreciate it. I hope that you've learned a lot. I know that this has been a great process for us at the department. We've learned a lot about what's going on in your network, what's going on, and what are some of the biggest challenges you face. It's been a really, really eye-opening learning experience from all sides. So thank you again for all the time you've given to this. In February, I'm thinking it'll be probably toward the end of the month, the Cohort 3 Ready Start Network application will be released, and it'll be due come April. All right, so we had some questions and feedback from last week's webinar that I wanted to address. The first one said that they were still interested in a list of consultants in the area that would be available to assist with that process. So if you get in touch with me directly, just because I don't know what area of the state you're from, I'm not sure exactly what consultant needs you're looking for, because there's a variety of different ones. Some could help with marketing, some could help with messaging, some could help with strategic planning. There's a bit of variety, so I'd be happy to help you. So please, if this is you and you're still looking for a consultant for one reason or another, please just reach out to me and I'll do what I can to give you a connection. So this is the person that said they were still having trouble accessing the budget in EGMS. I'm about to show you some screenshots on the next 2 slides of what it looks like. EGMS, like I said, is kind of tricky, and in order to even reach your Get Ready budget, you had to update assurances and enter contact information. And some people have still had trouble after they've done that. So if that's the case, I've included a name here. His name is Randy Littleton. He is our EGMS guru expert. I go to him all the time for my questions in EGMS. And so if you do have trouble, email him and CC me so that I know what's going on and know when problems have been resolved. So this is what it kind of looks like. This is a very blurry screenshot, so my apologies. But when you go into EGMS, at the very top, as you click on one of these boxes on the top row, more and more options come up. So you would first need to update your assurances. So you'd go to assurances, and then the second row of selections would come up. You would need to select discretionary assurances, and then you would be able to find the Get Ready cohort assurances. And same with contact information. You would select contact information, discretionary contacts, and Get Ready cohort contact. So the Get Ready budget itself will appear under discretionary grants, not competitive. It's discretionary because anyone who was interested applied, received this funding. It was not a competitive process. That's why it's in discretionary. So if you continue to have EGMS trouble, please contact Randy, randy.littleton@la.gov. So you might remember last week we discussed fundraising and the fundraising pillar, and we kind of dove into that a little bit. And somebody just expressed concern at the end of the webinar last week that fundraising was a concern for their parish. And we recognize that, and we know that a lot of parishes are more rural than others, have less opportunity to reach out to potential funders. And we just want to reinforce the idea that before you can even start to develop fundraising strategies, there are things you've got to put in place first. And that would be, of course, creating your blueprint, recruiting people to join your coalition, getting people on your team, establishing local governance, and enacting bylaws. So all of those things have to be put into place first before you can really even begin to toy with the idea of fundraising and figuring out your strategies there. So we recognize that it is one that people have a lot of anxiety about. When we took the survey at the very beginning of Get Ready, I think I asked you the very first webinar, what was the one that caused people the most anxiety? And I believe fundraising had the highest number of votes. It's going to take time. It will not happen overnight. Like I said, some of these Ready Start networks have been in place for just about a year, and they're just now getting into this groove where they can start to think about what their strategies might be for fundraising. So you will have time as a Ready Start network to develop first. Other Ready Start networks are going to be doing this work before you, and you will eventually in time be able to turn your attention to fundraising, but it will not be something you're required to do right out the gate. And it's something that you will receive a lot of support from, a lot of ideas for, especially once our first 2 cohorts of Ready Start networks start to get strategies on the ground moving. All right, so this was a great question. Someone asked, can I have a copy of the Ready Start application from last year? They'd like to see it to get an idea of what this year's application might look like. It will help me understand better what should be in the Super App and what should be in the Ready Start grant. Okay, so I am indeed going to share with you the Ready Start application for Cohort 2. I'm actually going to link it in the chat box here if anybody wants to look at it. It is on the Louisiana Believes website under Early Childhood, under Lead Agencies. I know that our website can be a little unwieldy to find things sometimes, but if you want to go and find it later, that's where it would be. I do want to share it with you because I want you to be able to see what some of the questions were last year, but I do want to make a note that this application was developed before the 4 pillars were. So you might remember us saying towards the beginning of this series of webinars that our 4 pillars were kind of developed a little later than we would have hoped for. Some Ready Start networks went ahead and started running and doing a lot of the work. And it was later that we really realized what order things should be done in, and that's when the 4 pillars were developed. I think it was around June or July of last summer. And this application came out in May. So this is before the 4 pillars were developed and really materialized. And that's just because that's what pilots are for. So our wonderful cohort 1 and cohort 2 have kind of been building the airplane as we've been flying it and figuring out what Ready Start Network work looks like. So you guys, should you choose to apply for cohort 3, are really truly coming in at a good time, because we've really developed a process now and developed a more clear path to take. That being said, this application that I just shared with you is going to be completely revised and more reflective of the 4 pillars and the sort of things that we've discussed during the Get Ready cohort. So if you are looking to apply for Ready Start Cohort 3, take a look at this application, see some of the questions, but I would not start any of the particular work related to it because it will change. Okay, I think that was my last question. So, some final notes on Blueprint. So some people have asked, when we submit our super app and if we want to be considered for birth to 3 seats, what are you guys looking for in a blueprint? And the department came up with these 4 questions that kind of are guiding the overall strength of a blueprint. And we'll ask each of these 4 questions for each blueprint that is reviewed. So the very first question is, are all required components of the blueprint included? So we've talked about those components a lot, and we will continue in just a moment. The second question is, are the blueprint's goals SMART? And a SMART goal is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. The third question we'll ask is, are the blueprint's goals aligned with data? And the fourth is, are the strategies for each goal clear and strong? So I have a slide for each of these questions to break it down a little bit more, just so you know the kind of quality that we're looking for in your blueprints. I will also make a note that when my coworkers and I review your drafts that you're submitting on Friday, we will be looking for these criteria as well, and we'll give you feedback on each. So the first question was, are all required components of the blueprint included? And so you guys know that those components include your analysis of current state, a mission and vision statement, and 3 to 5 goals. If you submit a draft on Friday that does not have these completed, I will let you know if you're missing anything. The second question we'll be asking is, are the blueprint's goals SMART? And we've talked a lot about this as a Get Ready cohort, but I just wanted to reinforce that we're looking for goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And each network has to determine what timeline and what measurement makes the most sense for them. So on the next slide, there are going to be some examples, and you'll notice that the timelines are different, how they're measuring their goal success is completely different, but both, because they fit these standards, these 5 standards, they're both acceptable goals. So let's take a look. So we've looked at this before. An example goal could be to increase the number of children served in our network. That's a great goal, but we want it to be a little more specific, more measurable, time-bound. So 2 ways that this goal could go. These are just 2 examples. These are straight from either a Get Ready blueprint or a Ready Start Network blueprint, and both would be acceptable goals that would be considered SMART. So the very first one is, by the end of the 2024-2025 school year, we will increase access to high-quality early childhood for 2-, 3-, and 4-year-olds by increasing the number of publicly funded seats to meet 100% of the family demand. So as you can see, this is very specific. We're looking at 2-, 3-, and 4-year-olds in particular. This is measurable because they will look at what the family demand was from that year and say, did we meet 100% of the family demand? And this is time bound This is 2024, by 2024, 2025. And as you can see, the following goal is by year 2022. So a lot of people have set goals at different time frames, and you just have to do whatever makes the most sense for your network. So another example of a SMART goal that would improve this original example to be more specific and measurable is by year 2022, increase the number of children in quality centers age birth through two by 10%. So again, this is specific, it's time bound, it's realistic. This is looking at a different age range. So this is birth to 2. Every single goal for access, most people have one, and every single one looks a little bit different because you had to do it based on your own data. You had to do based on what makes the most sense for you guys. So we will ask for your goals in general. Are the Blueprints goals SMART? Now, some of them I recognize are a little harder to quantify. I'm going to show an example later on that would still be acceptable. So just make a note that every now and then it is hard to measure how your Blueprints goal would achieve success. But in general, if you can make it measurable, if you can make it time bound, that's what we're looking for. So our third question that we're asking when we review Blueprints is, are the Blueprints goals aligned with data? So as I previously mentioned, all Blueprints goals need to be SMART. And when it comes to determining what is attainable or realistic in goal settings, you guys first had to look at your own data, and the data should have driven your goal setting decisions. So you guys know that in your Blueprint, there's an analysis of current state where it gives background about your network. So basically, a person should be able to read that background about your network and then read your goals, and there should be an apparent connection between the two. So I'm going to give an example. Okay, so we received a blueprint from a Get Ready network, and their analysis of current state is longer than this, of course, but it included this sentence. It shared that the network is providing services for about 1% to 24% of the potential student population from infants to 3-year-olds and about 65% at the 4-year-old level. Okay, so this background is really helpful. This is the kind of data and numbers that we're looking for in your analysis of current state. And this is a great example of how the goals align with the data, because one of the network's goals is to increase the number of birth to 3-year-old students being served by 5% in each level. So again, the analysis of current state set up that birth to 3 seats are problematic. Only 1 to 24% of students are being served in those age ranges. And that aligns very strongly with the network's goals to address this issue. So basically, when we read the background about your network, it just sets us up for what your goals are going to be. And that's something I've looked at really strongly. And I would say that the Get Ready background information, your analysis of current state sections, are looking very, very strong overall and set it up perfectly for what your goals are going to be. All right, and the final question we're going to ask when we look at blueprint criteria is, are the strategies for each goal clear and strong? So we want strategies to be clear, easy to understand, and we like it when they have several strategies that address the problem through a number of approaches. So this one is a really good example. The goal that Iberville Parish set was to increase community awareness of early child care in Iberville Parish to increase funding and resources. So this is one of those goals, first of all, that is not necessarily measurable. Increasing community awareness isn't something you can really put a number on necessarily. So that's understandable that it's not quite as SMART. And I forgot to include, there is a year, there is a time bound associated with this goal that just wasn't included. So anyways, I included this goal because Iberville's strategies approached the problem in several different ways. So the first was to develop a Ready Start Network website. I believe she wants it to be like a hub full of information for parents. It's easy to access and easy to understand. The second would be to utilize social media. And the third would be to increase the coordinated enrollment events throughout the year. So this was a really strong goal and strategy example for me. And I think what I really want to emphasize is that those strategies approach the problem in a number of different ways. She could have just settled for, okay, well, we're going to develop a website and that's it. But in this case, she's not only planning on developing a website, but she's also going to do these other things to help try and increase the overall community awareness. Here's another example. So this is another access goal that was done by Lafayette Parish. So the goal, again, as you've seen many of these, this one's to increase access to early care and education seats. And that's overall by 5% for 5 years for a total of 25% increased access. So that's a very lofty goal. That's a big deal for Lafayette Parish, which is a very large parish. And I wanted to include this because I really, really appreciated how strong and clear the strategies were. So the first strategy is to apply for all local, state, and federal funding opportunities available to the network. That includes, I feel like that's a very comprehensive way to say they'll apply for all their LA4 seats, they'll apply for B2 3 seats. If any other opportunities come up, you better believe they'll be applying for them. So that was a very comprehensive way to say that. They're also looking to recruit type 1 and type 2 early learning centers to become type 3 for more seat availability. I think that's a great strategy. I think that's also a long game strategy. That's not something you can do overnight or immediately, but that's kind of like a big picture, trying to form relationships with these type 1 and type 2 centers, and eventually they might become convinced to become a type 3 center. So that was a great strategy. And again, like I said, a long-term strategy. And thirdly, they are planning on using fundraising from local fundraising efforts to increase capacity of locally funded seats. Again, this is a long game strategy. This is a strategy where they're hoping to start fundraising soon and that will eventually pay for seats. They have not achieved this yet. Lafayette's, this is for the next 5 years. So I have a feeling that both those second and third strategies are kind of more long-term. But I thought that that was a really great multifaceted approach. So just to re-emphasize, I'm going to go back for just a moment. These are the 4 questions that we'll ask when we are reviewing all of the blueprints submitted. We want to make sure all the components are there. We want the goals to be smart. We want the goals to be aligned with data, and that strategies for each goal be clear and strong. So finally, when you post your blueprint to your website, the Super App is requiring that you provide a link to this public-facing blueprint because we want it to be on a website. We eventually intend for this blueprint to be a document you can use with stakeholders that is getting either people recruited or informing them about what your long-term goals are. And you might decide that you have to amend your existing blueprint to be ready for an external audience. So what we mean by that is that the blueprint that you guys have created and put hours of work into and worked with program partners on, the one that's got strategies and resources and performance metrics, eventually that might function as an internal document and one that you keep to help for guidance, and that what goes on your website could just be a high-level external-facing blueprint that highlights your mission. Oh, it says Ready Start Networks, but we mean your community networks, mission, vision, and goals. So this is because we want to ensure, first of all, that you're not sharing details in your published blueprint that are sensitive or for an internal audience only. We want to encourage you to eventually develop some sort of external facing document that summarizes what your blueprint is aiming for. You might remember that I shared with you Ready Start EBRs. So East Baton Rouge Parish is a Ready Start network. They have already posted their blueprint to their website, but it is a summary of their blueprint. I don't think that they necessarily wanted to share all of their strategies and performance metrics in this way. So what they're going to do for Super App, in the Super App application, they will put this link. This is what they will link when it asks for their blueprint. But individually, they will send to the department their more detailed version of the internal blueprint, because that's what we will be reviewing when we review your Super App. So we've looked at this last week, but as you can see, just a reminder, they included vision, mission, and introduction, which is their analysis of current state. And then they just included their high-level goals. They also put a line toward the top that said, for a more detailed version, please email one of these two email addresses. So you might decide that you don't necessarily want to post the entirety of your blueprint to your website. I'm not sure if there's any sensitive information you might not want to share, or maybe you just want to do a high-level version. And if that's the case, here's an example of what you might want to include. So if Iberville Parish, this is their longer internal blueprint. If Iberville Parish decided that they wanted to just post a high-level version on their website, we would ask them to include their analysis of current state or their introduction, their vision and mission statement, and then their high-level goals. If that is something that you want to do, if you decide that you want to have a sort of more external facing blueprint at this time, that is just a high level, you would still link it in Super App, but you would need to email me your longer internal version, because that is what we will review for Super App. I do want to share, I forgot one more example. This is something from, this is an example from Michigan, Kent County. They put together a proposal like this, and this could potentially be a way that you could organize an external facing document, a one-pager of sorts for your blueprint. There could be statistics involved, a vision statement, a mission statement. You can imagine a world in which you kind of plug in your own information here instead of Kent County's information. So this is kind of more of a long-term strategy if and when you become a Ready Start network. Eventually, we would want your blueprint to have a version that is easy to understand and easy to for a community member to understand, I guess I should say, at one glance. Kind of get an understanding of what direction you want to take. So I'm going to pause for just a moment and see if you have any questions about that, about what it might be like to have an external facing document versus your internal one that has more details. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type in the chat box. Okay, so someone was asking about where, let's see, Arita was asking where is EBR's blueprint located. I'm gonna copy and paste that for you right now. Whoop, trying to exit full screen, there we go. So that you can take a look at it. If you just Google East Baton Rouge Parish Ready Start Network, it should come up, but this is the site. I've put it in the chat box if you want to take a look at what theirs does. So again, I do want to emphasize that East Baton Rouge Parish will have to link this site in their Super App application, and they will have to share with me and email me their more detailed version of their blueprint, because that is the one we will review. So keep that in mind, that if you do choose to have a more polished, highlighted blueprint on your website, we will still want the internal version. So Michelle asks, if we received blueprint feedback Do we need to resend our blueprint to you with the necessary changes? Yes. The feedback, well, I'm trying to remember your specific situation, Michelle, because some people got blueprint feedback on just one goal, and some people got blueprint feedback on 3 goals. So whatever the case may be, it would be very helpful if you could send me your updated blueprint with those changes made. Okay, Lee missed a part on the priority block for requesting seats. Is that, Lee, well, let's talk, let's connect after this to chat more about requesting seats. So thank you for your question. Okay. All right, thanks everybody for your questions. Let's move on. We are going to talk about what we've learned the past 9 webinars. I believe this is our 10th, so you guys have stuck in there a long time. So as you know, we have really focused on these 4 pillars and how important they are to the Ready Start Foundation, and how each one builds on one another. So I'm hopeful that after this experience, you guys will have a better understanding of what Ready Start Networks do, and you will have also accomplished the very first pillar. So by creating a blueprint, you have begun the process of becoming an early childhood leader in our state and really driving strategic change. We've talked a lot about how the blueprint is all about establishing a plan and communicating clearly the direction you want to take your early childhood network. That has to happen first, and it's something that can be revisited over time, something that will need to be revisited over time as you start achieving your goals or as you have to start shifting your strategy. Your coalition is who you need to bring to the table. Who in your community can you partner with to help you achieve your plan? Who needs to be informed about Ready Start work? Who needs to be invested in early childhood? Who needs to be involved in early childhood? And who do you hold accountable? Thirdly, after those structures have started to begun and been put into place, a governing board will have to be established. And when that governing board is established, they will help you make decisions and they will help you have collaboration and shared responsibility. And that has to be put into place before anyone can even begin to think about fundraising strategies and how you will raise funds. Ultimately, this is what we want. This is our vision for our Ready Start networks. We want our Ready Starts to drive change at the local level because you are closest to children, and we think those closest to children and families are the best informed to make decisions about your area and your early childhood network. So we have this very big vision of being able to raise funds at the local level that is legitimized by having a governance structure. And all of those things, in order for it to happen, they all start with the blueprint, which is what you've already done and created, which is really exciting. So by participating in the Get Ready cohort, you have done data analysis. You have strategically planned. You had to really critically look at your data in order to complete your blueprint. And that blueprint can help drive your network's early childhood vision for years to come, which is really exciting to think about. And I hope you guys feel accomplished for this blueprint work. You've also brainstormed potential future partners and community members who could support your early childhood network by joining your coalition. So keep in mind, to have people on your team and to have people advocating for early childhood, you don't necessarily have to be a Ready Start network to start doing that. You can always think about ways people in your community can support early childhood. And so many of you earlier in this journey came up with some really, really innovative partners in your community that might be able to help you one day with early childhood. We also explored the basics of establishing local governance, what that might look like, what enacting bylaws might mean. We learned a little bit about how Ready Start networks will embark on fundraising strategies in their communities. So we really tapped into each of the 4 pillars. Some of them have just been conversations, and they've been really helpful in envisioning what this might look like for our state in the future. And some of it has been really hard work. So the blueprint was very hard work, and the accomplishment of that is something that you should be very proud of. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and ask if you want to talk about what are some of the big takeaways you learned from the Get Ready cohort. What do you think is something that really stands out to you in your network? So I'm going to pause for a moment and allow people to type in the chat box. So please continue to type if you're doing so, thinking of the big takeaways we got from the Get Ready cohort. The one thing that I'm going to take away from this is just how important it has been to really immerse yourself in your data and to better understand that. And I think it's been really important for us to provide those data kits to you and how helpful it is to have all your data in one place, because that is really a starting point. Once you understand that and understand what you're looking at when you look at your data, then you can kind of make more plans moving forward. Okay, looks like I have a few chats. We have a better idea of work that needs to be done to improve early childhood in our network. We have heavy thinking for 3 of the 4 pillars, but ready for the challenge. Okay, that's exciting. I'm excited you're ready for the challenge. And I'm really excited that you have a better idea of what needs to be done, because I do feel like the strategic planning process in the blueprint creation really does force you to think, okay, what needs to be done, big picture, for our community to make change. I do think that a lot of times, myself included, we get bogged down with the day-to-day administrative tasks, and this really was an opportunity for us to kind of think on a bigger picture what needs to happen. So I appreciate that feedback. Rachel asked a great question, and I'm so glad you asked it, Rachel. She said that she understands we'll have the first pillar completed before applying for Ready Start. It seems clear the fundraising will be done down the line if they're chosen for Ready Start. When will the coalition and governance pillars be implemented? And does this need to be in place when applying for the grant? That's a great question, Rachel. And no, it definitely does not have to be in place when applying for the grant. The first pillar is really the only major one that has to be done. And that is because we've asked for blueprints if you want to be considered for birth to 3 seats. But what the Cohort 3 grant application is going to look like, it's going to ask you, how do you envision building your coalition? What do you see your governance structure looking like, and what kind of decisions will they make? But you will not have to actually have put those pieces into place yet, by any means. We just want you to think about them and what they might look like in your community. But remember, I do want to remind you guys that Cohort 3, while the applications are due in April, the actual funding will not be available for you until July, because we want it to run on a school year funding. So you'll get your funding from July to June of 2021 if you become a Ready Start Network Cohort 3. And so what'll probably happen is in July, we will really dig in and start our work as Ready Start Networks, and we'll help support you Because your blueprint's kind of already in place, the first pillar we'll work on, of course, is coalition building, and we'll provide support for you as you do that. And only after you've done that for a few months, then we can really start thinking about your governance structure. So again, it will kind of be laid out on a clearer path than what our previous Ready Start networks have had to do. And it won't happen like right out the gate. It'll be a little bit of some time to adjust as a Ready Start network and to build your coalition and build partners first before you will have governance and bylaws in place. Okay. Bridget said she appreciated the guidance with blueprint development. Great. I'm glad that that has been helpful for you. Stacy said they had an idea of what we needed to focus and improve on, but participation in Get Ready Network made it tangible through the use of data and true reflection of our strategies. That's awesome, Stacy. That's really, really great. I'm glad that that's what you're getting out of it. Let's see, Arita, big takeaways, planning, planning, planning. Yes, collaboration and buy-in is a must. Networking with other lead agencies is necessary. You must use your data as a guide to a successful blueprint, and as a result of this cohort, the super app is a lot clearer. Thank you. Oh, great. Okay. Well, all of that is very helpful feedback. Thank you guys so much. These are really big takeaways. And again, I think one of my biggest takeaways is just that in order to have a really clear understanding of the direction you need to take, it just takes some time to set aside and to really think strategically. It sounds like Arita feels the same way, that planning, planning, planning was a big takeaway. I also really appreciate, Arita, that you called out that collaboration and buy-in is a must. That is so true. And I know a lot of you were really, really thoughtful about bringing your blueprint plans to community partners or having their input on it, or planning on doing that in the near future. So way to go. This has been a big lift for everybody. Rachel asked, is there any flexibility in release of funding if we're selected? We were hoping to use this funding to get classroom space up to daycare standards for some 3-year-old seats with the B2 seats in the super app. July will be tight to start school in August. Yes, that would be a really tight turnaround. Rachel, I'm really not sure there on the timing if we can adjust that in any way, but I'll flag that and I'll talk to some members of my team and get back to you. Thank you for your question. That's a really good question. And I really like how thoughtful you're being and planning for the coming year ahead. Okay. Okay, so this is time to pause real quick. I'm going to share this survey in the chat box. I also have it linked here if you want to go to tinyurl survey. It's called tinyurl.com/getreadysurvey. I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes. It literally asks 2 questions. What network are you representing? And how likely are you to apply for the cohort 3 of Ready Start networks? So please fill this out when you can, right now if you can. We just want, this is not set in stone by any means, but we just want a better understanding of who is planning on applying and who is pretty sure they're not and who's in between. I'm gonna mute myself because I'm gonna give you 1 minute to do this. Oh no, Pam says she doesn't have permission. I'm guessing that's the case with everybody. So if you just hold on 1 moment. Oh man, that is totally my bad. Hold on just a second. There's a certain box I have to check and I didn't check it. So I will get in there real quick. I'm sorry. Okay, if you could refresh Okay, sorry. I realized I think I've been on mute for a moment there. I apologize. I've just going out with a bang this last Get Ready cohort. So apologize if you've heard me say this twice, but I have broken down what's next into 3 different categories. The first category is for those networks who are ready to apply for Ready Start. I have a slide for those that are unsure. And I also have a slide for those that are pretty definitely not applying this time around, but what they can do in the meantime. So if you are eager and ready to apply for cohort 3, let's build on the momentum that started with Get Ready. And first of all, you need to know that the cohort 3 application will be due by April of this year. A really good idea would be for you to start conversations with or visit current Ready Start networks. Consider attending a local governance meeting if at all possible. So a good idea would be to reach out to me and let me know that you'd like to visit a Ready Start network. You could hop on the phone with them, or you could even visit them in person. They are very eager to share what they've learned so far with other people. They're really excited to meet potential new Ready Start networks. So I'd be happy to sync you guys up. Especially if you reach out to me, I can hopefully connect you with a network that I feel like is similar to yours. So for example, if you're a smaller, more rural area, I wouldn't necessarily connect you with East Baton Rouge Parish or Orleans Parish, but I'd hopefully find you a Ready Start network you can chat with that's comparable to your size. So if you're also interested in applying to be a Ready Start network this go round for cohort 3, you could also consider adapting your blueprint into a shorter, more high-level version that we talked about earlier, so that that could be shared with stakeholders and coalition members as you get started as a Ready Start. And you could also adapt your blueprint into shorter, I got distracted for a second. You could also keep conversations going about who in your community might contribute to your coalition. So think about who you want on your team to help you out, who needs to be on board, and what can you do to build awareness about your Ready Start networks before the work begins in July. So for networks that are unsure, you still haven't made a decision yet, and you might apply for Ready Start Cohort 3, we can set up a call with you and other key players in your community to answer any questions you might have. Maybe someone from the school board might want to be on that phone call. Maybe you want some key players like Head Start or child care directors that will be crucial to this work. If you want to get them involved, or if you just want it to be us and you, that's fine too, but we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Again, we can hook you up with current Ready Start networks to hear firsthand what the experience has been like. And we want you to think about what's standing in your way and how can we address that? What obstacles do you feel like would hinder you from being a successful Ready Start network, and how can we solve those problems? And we know that there are some networks who are just not quite ready to apply yet to become a Ready Start network. So we want you guys, if this is the case, we're so glad you still participated in this process. We're so glad that you developed a blueprint because we know how much work that has been, and we're really excited that it will still continue to hopefully help and drive change in your community. So if you are one of those networks that you're sure that cohort 3 is not quite, you're just not quite ready for it, there will be future opportunities to apply to be a Ready Start network. We're not going to stop at cohort 3. All networks can continue to get ready and prepare for future rounds of applications and continue to make big changes for early childhood in your community. So if you're not yet ready to apply for cohort 3, consider the following questions. What are the barriers that are preventing you to apply, and how are you addressing these challenges? How do you plan on getting to your desired state? And how can you continue to implement your blueprint goals and fight for change in your community? So we hope that if this does apply to you, that this has still been an eye-opening experience. We hope that you are very interested for future work in Ready Start networks. And we hope that the strategic planning aspect of blueprint creation and that all of the talk of the different pillars has been worthwhile for you and that you've learned a lot from it. So I am going to say thank you so much for all of the time that you've dedicated to the Get Ready cohort. I know that it has not been a small task. There have been many hours on webinars and many hours outside of webinars put into the work. And thank you so much for everything. And thanks for the work that you do, because you guys are on the forefront of fighting to improve the lives of children and families in Louisiana. And we don't take that for granted. We're so appreciative of the work that you're doing. Finally, I didn't want to let you forget to please submit a finalized blueprint draft to me by the end of the day on January 24th in order to receive feedback from me and the rest of my team. And I do have one final survey, so I apologize for our survey hiccup. I think what ended up happening was I had to enable it so that people outside of the State Department could get to it. And then we actually made two different surveys. One was just a very quick one that was asking, how likely are you to apply for Ready Start? And the other one is an anonymous survey that was a little bit more about the process that we've had so far. So what I'm going to do is share both links in the chat box, and hopefully you can get to them without problems. Let's see, so this is the first survey link. And then survey link for Ready Start Network readiness. All right, so there's the link that is about the Get Ready process in general, and that's an anonymous survey. And then the one for whether or not you're ready to be a Ready Start, we're calling the Ready Start Readiness Survey, is right here. I apologize again for the survey hiccup. And thanks, Stacy. I appreciate that. I appreciate working with you guys. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna stay on for a little bit longer just to ensure that everybody can get to the survey links, because unfortunately, as soon as I sign off, the chat box will disappear. But I will email this to everybody. And I will be looking forward to reading everybody's finalized blueprint. I know you guys have put in so much work there. So thank you all. I'm going to mute for now, but stay on for a little bit longer so that you can get the survey links. But as soon as you've got those and you can start filling them out, you can log off. Thanks again for everything.